was newly painted, smelled of polyurethane instead of beer. I ordered a drink and remembered standing outside with the old timers a few years ago, laughing at the city road crew as they painted a double yellow line down the street for the first time. "Where are you from?" the bartender asked. He was young and fit. He looked intelligent. He looked like he had sex with attractive women. He looked like he had a future. There must be a word, I thought, a way to tell him. I was angry suddenly. I wanted to smack him just for talking to me, just for being in this place. I wanted to smack him for the plants in the window and the missing jukebox and the flat screen television and the $6 beer. And I felt ashamed. My mother was dead on the floor and I was back. My tongue kept cutting itself on the new broken tooth and it hurt. And I felt like I couldn't talk. "You okay, dude?" he asked. Standing still, I said, "What?" I wiped my eyes and saw the thick black lines of grime under my fingernails and looked away, down at the polished floor where the white octagonal tiles had been. I thought about the blacks and the Puerto Ricans and the Italians and the fights and the parties. The owner of the car service
Did you just maneuver your way out of it? Avoid it? Or you didn't have it in you? Didn't want it in you?
Certainly didn't want it, but most of the time I was able to navigate it. You know, I certainly got fights.
Well, that's what I want to get to. What are you holding that to? What do you mean you got to fight? Only when you had to.
Sure.
When was the last fight?
What time is it?
Night is
Yeah, no, it was great. It was doing drugs.
I have violent tendencies, but mainly they're more psychic, philosophical, intellectual tendencies, although I've been known to occasionally slap, usually trying to erase somebody's father's fist off the face. But as Jeff Cecilia, you know, trust me, blood does boil, but I'm more of a puppet master, blood, especially with the Irish. We love each other, the Italians.
As I said, the night is young.
Your wife's sitting right there and you're flirting with me. Where's this?
I don't know, how am I doing, sweetie?
Pretty good. I've already flirted with her anyway, doesn't matter. Who first instigated you? What first book? You said that you, I got it, no, I'm going to do that. Who planted the world?
There was a really long down period from, I started writing when I was 19. And I actually started writing when I started driving car service, because there were situations that I thought, I just felt like I had to record them, they were too good. And for a long time, I drove around with a spiral notebook under the seat of the car, and I would drop customers off, and I'd pull over and I'd make a few notes. And I did that for almost 4 years. And then I wound up, you know, sort of getting sucked into the whole middle class, you know, dickhead, you know, civil service, get a job, you know, go live on your own, try to live a middle class life thing for a few years. And it wasn't until I turned 30 that I realized I wasn't happy with just that. I wanted to do more. And I had never finished college, and I thought, well, I would love to take a serious stab at writing. And if that doesn't work out, I'll try to go finish college just to be doing something. And when I took the writing classes, I pulled out all of those notebooks from the past several years, and you know, it just comes back in a rush, and it was all just like it was yesterday, and that's just kind of came together into the novel.
Because other than almost everything that I write, except for the 2 stories I sent you, which are fiction, I have 3 fiction pieces. I write from complete experience. So my question with you is, you have gathered all these experiences, but what do you call it, like fictionalized fact? Because there's a lot of just truth and real experience in what you're documenting. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how do you view it? What do you want it called?
I definitely think it's fiction. When I'm writing essays, they're stories that I can easily document and name names, so to speak, and places and specific incidents. Although, you know, once or twice, even with the essays, like I blended 2 things just to make it simpler, 2 characters into one. But short of that, I try to keep it really, really close to reality. But with the fiction, it's rarely autobiographical in that it's about me, but it's autobiographical in it's certainly worlds that I passed through.
And so it's kind of autobiographical about other people,
yeah,
which is interesting to me. Because first of all, I don't read fiction for the last 25 years, I guess, because I read a lot of fiction when I was younger. I don't write fiction except for 3 pieces, which I sent to you. Give me the highest compliment of my life. It's so good, I think I hate you. Thank you very much. That's fiction for you. I don't know why I don't write more fiction. I guess I truly don't kind of understand it, because when I was reading, for instance, Selby or Miller, or any of my, the men that inspired me, I took every word as fact, because it could have been. The same way I think your book, when I'm reading it, I'm like, oh no, this is not fictionalized. This is merely like the recorder on somebody else's life, which is why it impacted me.
Thank you.
Thanks for inspiring me to write the book. Not my own fetish for people in the print system. I'll do that later. Touch me on sick.
Affecting an arrest, and then subsequently becomes addicted to opioids and takes the police scanner into an apartment he's visiting to cat sit.
What's missing? What's he drinking? That's not what he's drinking.
But so in real life, I had a friend that was injured and got addicted to opioids.
Just one?
One that I was using in this instance. I had another friend who was injured affecting an arrest and had to have several back surgeries. And I had a third friend that was cat sitting and discovered, I think this is a number of years ago, back when phones were a little bit less complex, but he discovered that the baby monitor let him listen in on other people's phone conversations. So I just took those 3 people and made it the guy in the story.
And all together, they become a little excited, because one without the other is just the average fucking man on the street. You're not writing for me, but it did the trick. That is a great story. So you were gathering notes in your notebook. Okay. How long did it take for you to put together this latest release?
This collection?
Because before that, you were writing essays, or you were also the editor of Brooklyn Noir 1, 2, and now 3, and various other well-acclaimed books. So, but this specific thing, what made you say, okay, now I gotta cover this subject?
It took a number of years. It spans a lot of years, and it took a while before I realized it was only shortly before I pitched it to Johnny Temple that I realized it kind of had a theme, that what I was writing was, whether it was fiction or nonfiction, was always about the same kind of people and about the same kind of situations. And
well, just a minute of what are those situations? What are those people? I'll just say frustrated. Wrong place at the wrong time.
That's essentially it. It's hard to improve on what we just said. It's what's happening is they're not easy to bargain. They're not. I don't think I ever write about people who are evil. I write about people who make a terrible mistake, get in over their heads, make a left turn on the corner when they should have made a right turn. And what happens, that's to me, that's sort of what noir fiction is. It's nickel and dime losers. It's not people who are
intrinsically evil.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the chump changers of the psychologically damaged.
Yes.
That makes 20 cents.
So
I'm writing a novel. Not the blurb, I mean the blurb.
I'll take notes off the tape. Yeah, no, so
I got a few stories I'd love to tell you later.
Cool.
Have your
yeah, so it's, I think if anything, I think sometimes about the way, again, maybe because I work in the court system and in criminal court and in criminal terms, Supreme Court for so many years, the way people judge people who are moving through there. And there were definitely bad guys, but bad guys are like 10%, 90% are lost souls, 90% of people that just couldn't get out of their own way. And
I love that phrase. I tell people that all the time. Get out of your own way. Get out of your own way.
Yeah. So it's
next now. So, okay, so how long did it take you to compile these stories? And when you were thinking about putting them together, were you thinking about the arc or just you had these, disparate stories that were going to come together? This was under my bed, it's going to come out.
Both. What happened is the stories that formed the backbone of it were about probably written over 10 years, maybe 12 years. And then when I realized that they could be something, then that gap needed to be plugged. And then those stories were written over probably maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and to fill it up too.
So when you went to wherever you keep, women often keep their volumes under their bed. Where were these? In a folder in a filing cabinet?
Yes.
30 cents.
For a shot.
I'm good with this. Okay. So when you went to pull out this file, was it like one file, here's these stories, these are from like 10 years ago, these are most of the stories compiled from the taxi drive-in? I mean, did most of them come from there and then you filled out?
No, the novel Heart of the Old Country came from the car service experience, that entirely.
Right. And then these, the court.
Yeah, a lot of these came from the courts, some of them from the transit authority. For other jobs that I had.
Question is this. So with this book, did you have stories completely finished, not put together yet, have finished? I gotta talk, the way that you were, when you were in the car service, writing down those ideas, scattershot, made into one book. Did you have full stories completed that were just standing on their own about situations, or just the ideas?
No, yeah, just the ideas. Okay. Much the same way that I used the notebooks when I was in the car service. I used to have a very little spiral notebook that I kept in my shirt pocket in the courthouse. And I used to write down what I called the elevator stories, because sometimes just going from the first floor to the 8th floor, you would get enough snippets of conversation that'd be like, my God, this could be a novel, and as soon as people would get off the elevator, you'd get jotting down a few notes. So there was certainly that. And I also do credit Johnny Temple, because when I submitted the manuscript, he accepted the manuscript, and then you know, removed a couple of pieces that he thought did not fit that arm.
He's never done that to me, he knows better. Well, maybe he did, I just know.
Well, next time you can talk to him for me.
Or just,
There you go.
I'll do it.
So when he pulled the
where's
pieces,
those extras? Volume 2?
yeah, well, maybe.
Guys, okay.
It's a good conversation.
How did you feel when he was actually extracting some? I mean,
Oh,
like some people, it's like my baby. It's like,
No,
you know
no,
what?
no.
I believe in abortion, they're not my babies.
Yeah, I wasn't so much, oh, it's my baby, as I was, oh shit, this means I have to write something. So it was more about, oh, now I have work to do. Okay. I'm at my best when I have nothing to do.
Taskmaster.
Yeah.
Temple the taskmaster.
Yeah.
So
that required me to write newer pieces to fill in those gaps, and it was a really good thing to, you know, to do. Out of 13 pieces.
interesting, because it all hangs together. It's not like one person is talking, but it hangs together. That it is pretty seamless. I mean, you don't know. Maybe it's what, but it is again what we were saying before, that it's a certain, just taking a wrong turn, doing something you know was dumb. You did it. Now what? And it's not as if any of the stories have that horrible or true evil, and not really any horrible endings. What would be, is there anything that you're like, okay, what are you sitting on that Johnny didn't publish? Can we get to that for a minute? Stories of just like what the concept was.
Yeah, no, I would say the fiction is darker than the essays. The essays tend to be a little funnier because they reflect goofy shit that I did. The fiction is a little bit darker. I don't know about when you're writing how it goes with the length of the work, but for me, it's hard to write really dark stuff that's very, very long. I like to, you know, if it's going to be dark fiction, it's got to be a short story. I don't want to live there for that long. I can do that in a short story in a month, but I don't want to live there for a year and a half to do a novel that's going to dive that deep.
Not pulling a Jim Thompson then.
No.
Me.
I like reading it, but yeah.
It's amazing he wrote as much as he did.
Yes, absolutely.
And I have to say, the killer inside me, not only the book was great, the movie was pretty freaking harsh. Thinking about, like, where is the movie and the next movie? Would you want to write, would you want something adapted? Would you want this book adapted or a story from it adapted? How did you feel about the first adaptation?
I was very happy with it. I was
Remind us of the name of that, the book and the title of it.
The book is called Part of the Old Country, and the movie was called The Narrows. And they did a very nice job. They had to modernize it. Mostly, a lot of concessions were made because it was a low budget indie. So you weren't. Yeah, you weren't going to be able to suddenly start, you know, filming 25-year-old
Super 8, honey. Bring it back.
So, but I was pleased with what they did. I was pleased that they got the actors that they did to.
Who was in it?
It was Vincent D'Onofrio. And don't tell. No, he's here. He's in the back. Stand up, Vincent.
No, I have a stalking video. I stalked Vincent D'Onofrio in Law and Order, his interrogation. I'll send it to you. You'll have to believe it.
Okay.
The Sal D'Onofrio, let's just say, you don't stalk the stalker, Vincent. That's why he's not here tonight. Bobby. D'Onofrio, excuse me, I got a little wet. Who else?
Sophia Bush, Quinn Seggers, and Eddie Cahill.
That's something wrong with that.
I agree on both counts. Was Requiem Darren Aronofsky?
Yes, and he wanted to make, he made Pie before Last Exit to Brooklyn, but he wanted to make before Requiem for a Dream, but he wanted to make that when he was in college. And Selby was very happy with it. It is an amazing film.
Yeah.
I came out of it feeling like a rabbit in the headlights. It was just so good. And really, Selby also loved it.
Oh, that's good to know.
These are adapted from everything. Or let's go on, this might be easier. You're writing about not criminals, but crimes that happen and bordering around this. Are there any crime shows that you like or do you binge on? I mean, I'm
I'll tell
this
you,
week.
there's a great documentary. Have you seen the 7-5?
I haven't.
Oh,
Is it on the precinct?
Is it what?
Is that a precinct?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the
Where's
75th
that?
precinct in East New York.
Okay, I'm gonna watch.
You will be crazy about it. It is a documentary about a very corrupt group of cops in the mid-1980s, and it is extraordinarily well done.
It's not on Netflix. Something. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna find it.
It was for a while.
I was telling you briefly about my mockumentary. I went to the World Police and Fire Games, 10,000 cops and firemen, and it was started by the Rampart Division. You know, if you saw the Shield or the cocaine bust or Rodney King, started by that precinct, you know, police Olympics to try to improve their profile. So told me about this because I've been torturing police by blackmailing and fucking my own special way. So I went to that high on ecstasy and did a mockumentary. I love and loathe the Men in Blue.
There is a spectacular scene in the 7-5 where this one cop who is not a corrupt cop, who was doing a drug surveillance location, and he gets blown up, his spot gets blown up by corrupt cops to go off the drug dealers. Bringing out hardware, and then they jump in the car and start chasing them. And he radios the precinct and says, "We have a pursuit situation. We have this, that." And they said, "Can you give us the plate number of the car you're pursuing?" He said, "Negative. They're pursuing us. You know, get over here." And he literally, they chased them back to the precinct.
There you go. I remember once I was standing on top of the subway in Green Point waiting for a friend to come up, and up comes a hot cop. And he had a name like porno name, like whatever. And I'm just standing there, I'm kind of like being there, like, oh, you have beautiful eyes. And he's like, "You have beautiful eyes." And I said, "Oh, thank you." I said, "Because are you a hypnotist?" I said, "Well, I am a hypnotist." And so I have to play the game. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a hypnotist." And I'm like, now I know you didn't become an officer of law because you wanted to be an asshole, but I did read that 12-part Village Voice expose on New York City policemen." And he's like, "Well, I'm from Brooklyn." I said, "Yeah, okay." I'm like, "Do you ever go to the shooting range?" Cops never shoot their frickin' guns unless they're killing somebody. He goes, starts getting nervous. "Not really." I said, "Well, I have more gun training than the average police because I lived in New Orleans when 70 police were arrested." And so, but I'm done. It's like, "I think I've had enough." "Are you a hypnotist?" To test you.
One of the short stories is set in New Orleans. The one.
My next story is going to be set with you in New Orleans. Do a little shoot. Have you ever shot a gun?
Of course.
Well, try it.
Well, the gun I carried for 30 years was a detective special Colt.
I liked it. Did you have training?
Yeah.
Where?
At the Court Officer Academy.
Can we go shooting?
Sure.
Oh, I'm so happy now. I am. A bucket in living in New Orleans, or I'm living in Pittsburgh, or I'm living outside in LA, I'm not going to have a Morris or 357. Is there any questions from the audience?
Don't be scared.
Good, there isn't. Who wants to buy a book? I'll ask that question. No questions? Great. Should we ask you questions?
Pick somebody a friend.
Psychotherapy free sessions. Yeah. What else? When's your next appearance? So anyway, you were recently on my podcast, Lydia and Spin, reading and having a good time. That's when we began buds a couple of weeks ago.
That was lovely.
That was great. We'll have some reading together when Jerry Stahl also, his next book's coming out. When he comes to town, I think we're going to do some reading together. I think so, more than 5 minutes. Nothing else?
Hey, Tim, I'm so glad you read that story. I just feel like it is close to perfect. Not one word out of place.
Thank you.
So that was me saying, when you said you were going to read that, like, oh, yes. I'm like a fangirl, already. But I'm curious about how you, because you were writing this over a number of years, how you felt when you finished and how you felt when you had the book in your hand. Because it's a lot of years of work, I imagine.
Yeah, it didn't suck. It was a really, really wonderful feeling when I realized that it did have a dramatic arc to it, that both the essays and the stories, sort of had a bent to them. I was very, very happy about that. And that particular story, Indigenous, that is also, obviously based on a true story of a guy that I knew who did get out of the academy, and he and a bunch of other guys did what I wrote about. They went to Coney Island, they got drunk, and they hijacked the Wonder Wheel, and they got caught. And I mean, if you can look up, in the papers when that occurred and jumped off, it got a fair amount of publicity. The only difference is, I'm pleased to say, it's one of the few stories where real life had a happier ending, because that guy refused to roll over on any of the other guys in the academy. And 18, 20 years later, a number of those guys are pretty high up in the department now. And that guy is considered a rock star and untouchable in New York. And he's got actually his own roofing company now. And he's doing quite well. Everybody treated him well over the years.
Okay.
I would go to Coney Island quite often, ride the cyclone on acid and stand out.
Yeah, you would.
I loved it. Well, they're taller than I am. I could get away with that.
Yeah.
Plus, yeah, it was back in the day. Love the cyclone.
Oh yeah. I've seen people take their kids to the cyclone, and the kids have been on all of these insane roller coasters in the world, and they'll be standing, little 12-year-old kids saying, it doesn't look like much. And then the car comes down and like a bolt drops off, and the whole frame shakes, and they're like, oh shit.
I need the wood. I mean, there's something about the rattly wood.
Yes,
That just
yes.
that doesn't.
Now, when you say hijack the Wonder Wheel, did they tie up the operator? Did they just turn it on?
They handcuffed the operator,
No shit.
so that just cuffed him so that he couldn't stop them, and then they operated it. They just started and stopped it and
That's
let
really
people on for
impressive.
free. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's a hijack.
Hijack.
Yeah. But I think, we Okay.
Everybody should write a story with that as the first one.
And it'll be one book.
Yeah, everybody could just write one line and start with that. All right, like a Chinese whistle.
Somebody should pitch that to Akashic Books.
Johnny, I'm working on a book called Confucius. It's 1,000 pages, all numbered one, all one line. But I never met a man I couldn't kill. So,
Single space or double space?
all right.
Any more questions? This is your last chance. If not, we can wrap it up here.
Stick around, hang out, buy a book, and we'll draw that raffle for very special whiskey in about 20 minutes. About 8:35. So buy a book ASAP.
I don't know what it's under.